The CPI report is brought to you by VOCAL, Victims of Child Abuse Laws. VOCAL is ready to assist families who encounter difficulties with DHS and the juvenile court. CPI stands for Child Protection in Iowa. VOCAL can help with your issues. VOCAL is telecast on Mediacom Channel 17, Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock. You can also see it Wednesday evening at 8:30. You can contact VOCAL by email. That's vocaliowa@mchsi.com. Or you can call for helpful tips from Don Bergmeyer. My phone number is 276-3956, or John Harvey's telephone number is 282-2672. My name is Don Bergmeyer, and with me at the controls is my co-host,
John Harvey, and welcome to the CPI report with two major parts of our mission. One being to influence public policy as it relates to child protection issues, and secondly, to roll up our sleeves and to assist people who are having difficulties when they encounter the Department of Human Services and the juvenile court, and sometimes even have difficulties in family court matters as well. Well, those are the ground rules under which we operate, the goals in which we intend to practice, and I hope someday that when all of those things are satisfactorily met, we can close down our shop, can't we, Don? And retire knowing that families are safe from invasion from the department, that they're safe from the police, that they're safe from all harms from external sources, and they can go and live their lives in dignity and in safety, knowing that there is a caring society that wants to keep some distance between the family and the Department of Human Services. Wouldn't that be a great day when we can close our shop knowing that all those things are in place, Don?
That would sure be nice.
Okay.
Nice for a lot of families.
You see, it seems to be a big business now to have all kinds of intervention. And one of the things that arises when you have big business in the hands of a political entity called the state agencies is that sometimes they lose their focus and they lose their agenda. The General Assembly tries to keep them on target but can't do it because there's too many factors such as government grants, government programs that say, here, if you do this for us, we can give you tons and tons of money. One of those things, for an example, is the Adam Walsh Act, something similar to the seatbelt laws, which says that if you don't enact these rules, you will lose millions and millions of dollars. Well, we have state government now in the hands of our legislators who apparently like to spend money without regard to the end result. No real focus. Now, we can't do that as families. When we spend money as families, we usually have some purpose for spending the money. It's a focused purpose. And if we decide that we're going to need a better automobile or maybe even a new automobile, it's for a specific purpose, for transportation. Government, however, looks for their activities are designed around getting more and more funds from government, and they don't care what they have to do in order to do it. One of the things that Don has complained about is that they've got the idea that they can kidnap children. Because in kidnapping children, putting them in foster care, with the idea that the grass is always greener on the other side of the foster fence, they can capture all kinds of money from government. Then, noting that we have too many people in foster care, they'll say, well, you need to get those people, those young people, babies and so forth, into permanent placement. And government will come by and help you get those people, those young people, into permanent placement called adoptive homes, or one of the terms they use is a forever family. And if they do enough of that, they'll get all kinds of bonuses. So, what do you do if you want to capture a lot of money? And our state is looking for every possibility of making big money. They haven't thought of lemonade stands yet, but they've found every other excuse for finding money. And one fast way to do that is to steal children to get them into foster care so that you can take them out of foster care and get them adopted. What a silly thing to do. And then they cover this whole thing over with something called the best interest of the child in juvenile court. Best interest of the child is really a totally meaningless phrase. It is the equivalent of the adult court, in which the simple goal in adult court is justice. In other words, when justice has been reached, that is all the adult court is responsible to work toward. In juvenile court, it's the best interest of the child. And nobody has come up with an articulate definition for the best interest of the child. If there is somebody in our TV audience that knows what a good definitive answer is for the best interest of the child, I'd like to know it. I think it's a guessing game so that a judge can say, I'm doing something that makes no sense at all, but I'm going to call it the best interest of the child. Therefore, it meets the goals of the juvenile justice system. You're going to hear from a man today that'll be talking a little bit about the juvenile justice system and the enormous cost to our society for having a juvenile justice system. He's going to give you some statistics on it, the numbers involved in the juvenile justice system, which is magnificently high. And whenever we pull something like this without justifiable purpose, without justifiable definition so that we know where we're going, it is totally ridiculous. Well, we're going to turn to that in just a moment, but before we do that, Don and I are going to read a little bit from a lady who developed early on a program that comes in to assist people, and she chose to do this by through the computer. She calls her program CPS Watch. In other words, she's going to watch the child protection system. She comes from Branson, Missouri. She's held a couple of national meetings in her time. She has 11 children, all boys. So she knows a little bit about child development, at least male child development. She is a homeschool mom, but she has done a magnificent job of putting together an organization where she delivers all kinds of practical information under the title of CPS Watch. Her article appeared on another effort called FightCPS.com, and I'm amazed at the number of grassroots situations that are arising now, and I'm pleased to see this because it's telling me that people are beginning to recognize what bureaucratic kidnapping is all about, and what really slavery is all about in or putting children as pawns in a system to amass great funds for the bureaucracy. It certainly doesn't add anything to child protection, because that's not the direction they're headed. That's the direction that they tell the legislature that they're heading in order to get their $5 billion to run the CPS here in Iowa. CPS is just a generic term, and the Iowa connection for that is Department of Human Services. What do you do? What to do if CPS agents are investigating you? Here are some of my recommendations. Keep in mind, I'm not an attorney and this is not legal advice, so consider the source. Get an attorney if at all possible. Well, maybe not, as far as I'm concerned, and discuss these things with your attorney. Your attorney will understand local procedures better than I could possibly understand it. By the way, you are an important person in your case because you know, number one, you know more about your case than anyone else in the world. So you are a key individual. Don't let them leave you on the outside of all of these matters. Secondly, you have a desire to bring about a resolution of a problem that you may be facing or somebody in your family may be facing. So you have two good reasons for playing an active role in the resolution of any matter that you have before the juvenile court, before the family court, and before the Department of Human Services. First of all, record and document everything. We've seen some people who do a magnificent job with that. By the way, the people that are the most fun to work with are nurses, because nurses know what documentation is all about. Check your state record recording laws and print out a copy of your state laws and put it in a file folder entitled Child Welfare Agents, and put that near your front door. Have a tape recorder and a blank tape handy in the house at all times, and if a CPS worker shows up at your door, be prepared to tape the interview. You can, at that time, show them that you have a copy of the law. Don't be coerced not to tape. This is your legal right if your state law says that it is. In Iowa, that's the case. Videotape is better than audio tape if you can afford to do that instead. We've done that, haven't we, Don? Furthermore, you must document everything that happens in writing. Take notes. Sometimes it's good to put it down on a calendar because then you've got an automatic date attached to your notes. An English activist recommends you write down every word and insist that the worker must wait until the words are properly recorded. You have the right. Keep a spiral-bound notebook on hand and use it to document every contact with CPS-appointed service providers. Don't back down on this. Prepare in advance and stand firm against DPS agents After each contact, write a letter. Some recommend having such a letter notarized, detailing what occurred and a request that the social worker be confirm or deny the facts as you understand them. That's not a bad idea. Within 10 days of receipt of your letter. If no letter disputing the facts is received, then your statement of facts will be automatically confirmed. I never thought of that. Sounds like a good idea to me. This form of documentation can be used later as evidence in your favor in juvenile court. Don't invite CPS workers inside your home. You are under no obligation to let that person in your house. Under the basic law of our land, the United States Constitution Amendment 4, you have the right to privacy in your home. No government agent of any type is allowed to enter your home without your permission. Isn't that great? But they'll try to coerce you and say, try to talk very friendly. By the way, there's no friendlier person than a social worker who is looking to get information from you, and it isn't until they get that information that their demeanor seems to change drastically. That isn't just my opinion. That's what people have reported to me. No government agency of any type is allowed to enter your home. We know of many cases where the entry was coerced with statements like, "Let me in or I'll take your kids." Do not give in. Do not give up your constitutional rights. Stand firm on this, and if your rights are not honored, you can sue them. The only exception would be if the CPS agent shows up with a law enforcement officer bearing a search warrant. By the way, you'd want to be very careful about that too, because they know how to carry around a piece of paper and say this is a warrant. It better be with a judge's name on it, and a judge that you recognize. And by the way, I think it probably would be a good idea to make certain that the name of the judge is one that you can read, so that you can verify that it is a true and accurate warrant. By the way, they find it difficult to get warrants because the information they need to get the warrant is the information they were seeking in coming to your house in the first place. So they're going to find it difficult to go that route. That's why they would rather use the method called coercion or intimidation to get in your door. It's a lot easier than trying to get past the judge. Usually that doesn't happen. I will tell you why. The CPS agent is there at your door to gather evidence. Usually he doesn't have enough real evidence to detain your child right away, and there is not enough probable cause to obtain a search warrant. Typically, he will be just working on a phoned-in tip from someone who wants to retaliate against you for something. If you talk a lot, your words will be twisted in such a way as to be used against you in court. Also, if you allow the person in your home, you will most likely find something there to complain about and use in court. A sink.
Back up, John.
Sink with 8 dishes needing washing can show up in the report as a sink full of dirty dishes and a filthy kitchen, which of course would serve to make you look bad to the judge. What is it? Back up on what?
Just keep going. That's all right.
Okay. Therefore, just don't let those people into your house. You have no idea what an issue they can make out of a pile of laundry sitting next to your wash machine. By the way, if you do have dirty dishes, where's a better place to keep them than anywhere else in the house? It would be in your sink, wouldn't it? So they're making a good observation. Go ahead, Don.
Don't trust the CPS agents. In other words, know the enemy. And that's true. They are your enemy. They just come into your home and they are very pleasant speaking, usually in the beginning. then that starts changing. Know who CPS workers are, or we call them DHS workers here in Iowa. I used to work with DHS workers in the Department of Public Social Services in California, so I think I'm in a position to tell you what these government agents are like, though I've never been one. I was a welfare eligibility worker. The typical CPS social worker is there for one reason: to have a job to pay his or her bills. The worker cannot afford to lose the job, so she or he will do whatever the supervisor says in order to maintain employment. Now, if this social worker is put into a unit assigned to go investigate referrals and to make decisions regarding detainment of children, then naturally this person would be suspect if she or he never detained a child. In order to maintain employment, this worker will have to take a certain number of children into custody. Therefore, when they are at your home, they are thinking to themselves, what can I find out about this child to build a case aimed at taking their kid, quote unquote. They must have a case to take into court, and they are there looking for evidence. Even if they seem nice and harmless, remember, this is how they make their money. To keep their jobs, they must take away children from their families. They are wolves in sheep's clothing. They come to your door saying, I'm just here to help. The next thing you know, your children are in state custody and you are in court trying to prove your innocence. Remember, even if you like the person, behind every pleasant personality is a need to keep the social worker job. Behind every seemingly nice caseworker, there is a more experienced supervisor who may tell your caseworker to find something to use to detain your child. You would not believe some of the idiotic allegations I have seen in caseworker reports, but if they can get a judge to rubber stamp their side of the story, they can get away with keeping your children in state custody. Don't trust those people. You need to understand that DHS funding is closely tied in with service providers. It is likely that the social worker will offer some kind of deal saying you can keep your kid if you agree to services like psychological testing, drug testing, therapy, etc. What this offer really means is that they don't have enough evidence to take your child into custody. But if you just go to their service providers, they may get the evidence they need through these service provider reports. And I'll back up. It says
the reports don't have to be true, even do they, from the service providers?
No, you're correct there, John. Say, for example, you're accused of drug abuse. They want you to go to a drug testing service. Say, for example, you're accused of drug use. You say, okay, I'm not a drug user. I'll go. But then you find yourself facing false positive results. Or if you miss an appointment, you are told that will count as a positive drug test, just automatically. Your life is being severely interfered with because you have to go to scheduled appointments, miss work, make special child care arrangements, etc. Believe me, all this is not a service to you, against you, no matter what they call it, it is only a way for social workers to try to get evidence against you so that they can take your children away. Do not sign their plans, the case plans. They offer the case plans to you. Do not sign them. There is also, I learned years and years ago, that a parent has a right to assist in preparing those case plans. So a parent should assist them so that the social worker can't dream up information from another case or whatever they'd like to put in it. But the parent should be assisting and putting the true facts in there. Do not admit to anything. Force them to prove their cases in court, in a full trial. Don't accept just a hearing where you're coerced to sign guilty to the charges. They will try every trick in the book to get you to agree to their sick service plans. You must stand firm and just say no when they ask you to sign your legal rights away. Be prepared to face coercion. Just like many others, I too was told I could take my child home that day if I would just sign guilty to the charges, and I was so desperate to get my baby, I signed. Yes, it's like a carrot before a donkey. The donkey sees that carrot and it keeps walking forward trying to get that carrot. So it is with the DHS. Your children become that carrot, and that's all you can think about. You forget to use wisdom in dealing with these people. Thousands of us have done that. Believe me, it is better to say no. I want a full trial. You must prove your charges. If you give in to the coercion, you will be jumping through their service plan hoops for months to come. And that's what you do. They have you go to this place and that place, and well, if you miss an appointment, well, that proves that you're a child abuser, and the list goes on and on. If you go through it with a trial, there's a possibility you will win your freedom from this government interference in your family's life. But on the other side of the coin, if you don't put out some effort, you are going to lose your children. If you go through a trial and your child is adjudicated a state ward and you're court ordered to complete a service plan or a reunification plan, then of course you should do your best to complete every part of it before the next court hearing. In other words, if you get a court order, you need to be following the court order or whatever is involved within that court order. This plan will most likely include psychological testing and counseling. Now there's a question there. I put a question mark after psychological counseling because that gets twisted and used against you at that point. So you don't want a court-appointed psychological testing, in my opinion. That is a standard waste of taxpayer money. If the social workers want to court order you to do anything that does not apply to your case, you should insist that your attorney fight this requirement in court. Yeah, the attorney probably won't do anything. Just side along with DHS. You've got to put some effort into it. A lot of effort. For example, if they want you to go to drug testing despite the fact that you are not a drug user, and they have no evidence that you might be, then fight it. Otherwise, you become guilty as a drug user. Is that what you want? Guilt by association or something like that? After the court hearing, if social workers try to force you into services that are not in the court-ordered plan, you can refuse to cooperate. You are only required to do things that the judge has ordered. You should document all such illegal requests for additional services that haven't been required by a judge. You can request a state